The most important reason why we're here tonight, guys. Heather Bass is here from Tarrant Regional Water District to teach us all about gardening throughout the year. Heather is a water conservation supervisor at Tarrant Regional Water District in Fort Worth. She has a master's in environmental and earth sciences and a bachelor's in biology with a focus on conservation and restoration of natural systems. Heather has conducted research on rare Texas plant populations, sustainable landscaping practices, prairie restoration, and the effects of climate change on ecosystems. Her duties at TRWD include managing outdoor water conservation projects and increasing awareness of the conservation landscaping practices. Heather enjoys gardening with native plants, thank goodness, and spending time in nature. We are so excited to have her here. Please, without further ado, welcome our friend Heather Bass.
Thank you, guys. So for those of you who have been here before, you know, like she set up our Tarrant Regional Water District, so I'm going to start just by telling you a little bit about TRWD. So we're your local raw water provider here, and so we maintain and build lakes that are surface reservoirs that capture raw water. We use these pipelines that you can see as orange lines here on the map to pump that water back up to Tarrant County area from our lakes there in East Texas. Most of our water comes from our lakes there in East Texas because we do not have enough water here in this area to sustain the large population that we have. That water is raw, untreated water. Our customers are cities like the city of Fort Worth, Arlington, Mansfield, the cities in Tarrant County. They take that raw water, they take it into their water treatment plants, they treat it to drinking water standards, they pump it out to all of our homes and businesses. We also do flood control, so we maintain the levees along the Trinity River, we maintain flood zones, flood plain areas. We, monitor the dams. Do we need to open up the dam today? Do we leave it closed? That type of thing. And then we also do recreation. So the Trinity Trail system is ours. We have a variety of different parks. And then we also have, of course, recreational opportunities with all of our lakes that you see there on the map. Boating, fishing, swimming, all the things you do in a lake. And I'm here today talking to you from the Conservation Department. I'm a conservation supervisor over there. And for us at TRWD, water conservation is an important water supply strategy. It is a baseline part of our water supply strategy. SaveTarrantWater.com is our conservation-facing website. Please check it out if you haven't already. It has tons of resources, programs, all that type of thing. The graph that you are seeing here, this is the water use, what our pumping looks like. For this is 2023, and you can see down here we're in January, February, March. Here's our water use here down at the bottom. Then that big spike there, that's the summertime. So during the summertime, because of outdoor irrigation, primarily irrigating those large lawns of St. Augustine, our water use, 60, sometimes 70% of it in the summertime goes just to that outdoor irrigation, and so. That peak that you see right there, that's the most we've ever pumped in one day. 619 million gallons pumped in one day in August. So I'm here today talking to you about some sustainable landscaping, conservation landscaping practices so that we can try to save a little bit of water outside and we can stay closer to this beautiful baseline down here and we don't have that crazy, crazy peak. And typically that peak happens right in the middle of the summer when we're not getting any rain, when it's so hot. We've got so much evaporation happening on our lakes typically at that time as well, so it's not just that we're pumping the water out, it's also evaporating into the sky. I want to talk just briefly about the Go and Grow gardens. I think if you haven't heard of them, this is a garden in a box. Basically, it is 24 plants. It covers 125 square feet. Right now, right before I got to this class, I updated this presentation. The pocket prairie one was sold out, and there were only 30 monarch magnet ones left. So if you're looking to get one of these, you better order it right now, or else they're going to sell out. But we're offering rebates. So if you've already ordered one, or if you're looking to order one quickly, we'll give you a full rebate. We'll give you that thing for free if you show us that you are removing 125 square foot of your lawn to make way for these beautiful native plants. We also have $25 rebates for attending an online class. you can check out our event calendar to see which classes those are. But it is a class next week. I believe it's next Thursday. It's an online class, and it's a pocket period class is what it is. All right. Let's start talking about gardening around the year. I want to preface this by saying this is not necessary stuff, right? I'm going to go through every month of the year, and I'm going to talk about the things that you can do in your garden. That is not saying that you have to do these things. If you love gardening, great. You can spend all your time out there doing all of these things. But don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel like these things are necessary, that you have to do them, that you have to spend that much time out there. Pick and choose what you like to do. These are just ideas, not necessities. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just explain. So for every month of the year, you'll see on my slide, general watering guidance. I'm going to have a few different categories. I'm going to show you the amount of water needed for native plants versus the amount of water that is needed for a traditional landscape, a lawn, whatever you want to call it. I'm also going to show those two things if we have average rainfall versus if we're in drought and have essentially no rainfall. But I want to talk about how I'm calculating that. So this is not a guess, this is a calculation. So I'm looking at evapotranspiration, which is when water is transferred from the ground up through a plant, it evaporates up, out into the atmosphere, right? From the soil, from other surfaces, the transpiration by the plants. And then I'm multiplying that by a plant factor. So I'm taking the average evapotranspiration for a month, and I'm multiplying it by essentially the percentage of water that is evapotranspirated that needs to be returned back to a plant. So for a traditional St. Augustine lawn, that's going to be pretty high. It's going to be about 70% that you want to return back. For native plants, it's a lot lower. It's more like 20 or 30% or so. And so that's how I'm getting those numbers. If you don't want to do these things yourself, you can always sign up for weekly watering advice. The weekly watering advice at waterisawesome.com is not calculated based on averages, which is what I'm doing here. It is calculated based on our weather stations every week, custom to your location. But that is for a turf grass lawn. So that's going to be for a St. Augustine lawn primarily. So just wanted to be clear about where these watering numbers are coming from. So we're just going to start in January, and we're going to go through the whole year of what you can do to garden throughout the year. And we're really lucky in Texas. Yes, it's hot during the summertime, but we have mild winters. And you really can garden throughout the entire year with those mild winters. All right, so let's start in January. In January, your sprinklers should be off unless it's unusually warm and we haven't gotten any rain for a long period of time. But at this point in time, you shouldn't be watering. If there's no rainfall and it's unusually warm, which can happen in January, we know, a maximum of 1/4 of an inch for the entire month. Okay. If you've got winter veggies growing at this point in time, you're going to want to hand water those winter veggies, of course. Most of your regular plants, your perennial plants, are going to be dormant at this point in time, right? Your native plants. And make sure you're not irrigating during freezing temperatures because it can be hazardous, both for cars and for people and for your plants. And you can be, liable if somebody slips on your irrigation that's running down the street. Right now, your perennials, specifically your native perennials, in January they should remain unpruned, right? So those native pollinators are using your plants to overwinter in. They maybe lay their eggs, maybe they're hunkering down, maybe they are in a chrysalis or something like that at that point in time, right? But they're using plants for shelter. And so a lot of times people, as soon as we get below freezing and their perennial plants start to die off, on the top portion above the ground. So just to be clear, when I'm talking about perennial plants, those are plants that come back every year, right? So typically these plants are going to die off on their above ground vegetation, but then the below ground vegetation will still be alive and it'll sprout back green in the springtime. Leave that vegetation on there. It might look dead, it might look a little messy, but it has an ecological function. And for those pollinators, if you're wanting butterflies, bees, things like that in your yard. It's really important for them. As well as other things, like if you have, whatever, cute little lizards in your yard or, a lot of other different types of animals. Same thing with the leaves. Your leaves should remain in place at this point in time. They are providing insulation for the soil. They are keeping that moisture in for the soil. They are breaking down into organic matter that is adding to your soil, and they are also providing habitat for animals that are, or insects, pollinators that need some shelter during the winter time. If you have freeze-sensitive plants that are in pots, they should be indoors at this point in time. If you're the type of person that puts your house plants or whatever in big pots, out on your porch, they're usually in your garage or inside at this point in time. And if you have any freeze-sensitive plants that are in ground, you're going to want to cover them during hard freezes. A lot of times, since we have such mild winters, you could have something that is a freeze-sensitive plant in the ground, and you've only got to cover it maybe 4 or 5 times throughout the winter time, and it's okay, Or we could have one of those really hard freezes like we had a few years ago, and it can kill all of your freeze-sensitive plants. So that's why I recommend native plants, of course, always, because they are okay with our freezing temperatures. And then you can winter sow wildflower seeds, right? So throughout the winter, you can put down wildflower seeds. January is a perfect time to plan and prepare. I know if you guys love gardening like I do, a lot of times in January I'm like, oh, I miss gardening. I can't wait for the spring. It's a good time to dream, right? It's a good time to plan, look at those seed catalogs. It's a good time to do large earth moving projects. So if you're creating new beds, removing turf, creating paths or things like that, maybe some terraces, I don't know. Good time to do that. You don't want to be moving earth or rocks or anything like that in the middle of the summer. You want to do it in the wintertime when it's nice and mild. But, plan for your spring changes. What needs to be replaced? What new things do you want to plant? Do you want to create a new pollinator garden or a new, fountain, whatever? And start planning for your spring vegetable gardening. This is time to order your seeds for your spring vegetable garden if you are going to grow from seed. I recommend making a timeline for the coming season, specifically if you are growing from seed. So let's say you want a spring vegetable garden, you want to grow some certain type of vegetable. You can look up what are those times from seed to when it sets fruit, right? And then you need to work backwards. Okay, if I'm supposed to harvest in, let's say, late April, and it takes 8 weeks to go from seed to plant, okay, I need to plant my seeds, in early February or whatever it is. So, good time to start making those type of timelines. Seeds are so much cheaper, right, than buying your vegetable plants in the springtime at the store. So, I always recommend going from seed. And you can get so much better varieties when you go from seed than you can when you go to the store. So here's what I'm talking about making a timeline. Texas A&M AgriLife, if you're looking for vegetables to grow, it has excellent lists online. You can go to their website, just type in like Texas A&M AgriLife vegetables or something like that. And they have amazing lists of what types of vegetables you should grow in this area of Texas. What are the best varieties that are going to survive our, hot summers or the beginning of our hot summers. Maybe ones that are more drought tolerant, that type of thing. They'll have the timing that you need on there. When should you be planting them in this area of Texas? And then what varieties, right? What varieties are going to be good? Time to maturity, seed to fruit, seed to emergence. How long does it take for the seed to sprout once you put it? Should you direct sow, like sow it straight to the ground, right? Or should you be sprouting it maybe like inside your house under lights or something like that, right? In the winter time. When to harvest, when to switch seasons. Same thing with flowers. If you've got a very specific, spring wildflower or something like that you want to grow, same thing. Work backwards with that timeline. All right, moving on to February. Still no watering. Still no watering in February unless it's particularly hot, unless it's particularly dry. Even if it is hot and dry, a 1/4 inch in a month should be fine for February. unless you're growing winter vegetables, right? If you're growing winter vegetables, it's going to take a little bit more. A lot of times February is when it starts to actually get cold for us, right? That's when we have the most freezes, and so this is when I start to think about freezing a little bit more. But then also, get ready for spring, right? We're getting close to the springtime. So continue to care for your vegetable seeds. You probably planted some vegetable seeds maybe indoors under lights or something in January, and so care for those vegetable seeds. If it is warm, you can start to move your vegetable seeds outside. You know, if you're sprouting seeds, you have to acclimate them slowly to the outdoors and to the real sun. If you just put them straight out in the real sun after they've just been under a grow light, they are going to be very sad. So you can start to acclimate them a little bit if you feel like you can. A lot of times you can go ahead and start acclimating them on warm days, and if it's a cold day, just bring them back inside and put them back in the grow lights, you know. So you can start getting some of that growth. Finish planning for where your spring veggies are going to be planted. This is when you start harvesting your winter veggies and start thinking about, okay, I'm about to pull up all my winter vegetables and make space for my spring vegetables. Typically complete your large projects. And it's a good time to assess your compost pile. Do you got compost for adding to your vegetable garden in the spring? Do you need to turn your compost pile? Do you need to water your compost pile? Do you need to add to your compost pile? You've probably got some leaves at this point, right? February is also when you're going to start, depending on the weather, to take down that perennial growth, the dead perennial growth from last year. I typically go for Valentine's Day. That's when I assess. Okay, on Valentine's Day, is it still super cold? Okay, I'm going to leave it alone. Or is it starting to warm up? Are we starting to have some of those 75, 80-degree days? Then I'm going to go ahead and start cutting stuff down. So time to prune your perennials. Put that in your compost pile as well, right? If you're afraid there might be still some pollinator eggs in your stems or something like that, put it in your compost pile. They're hatched out of that. Pollinators need time and warmth to emerge from their hatch, right? They are full-blooded, so they need the warmth of the sun in order to do those things. So this is the time to start assessing the weather. Do you feel like there's going to be another frost? And we're looking at right now, right? It's warm, but then this weekend there might be a frost, right? So it's always kind of a guessing game. You never really know with our weather. Is there going to be another frost, or are we done in mid-February? Or is it going to be really cold in mid-February? You never know. When it comes to pruning, when I'm talking about pruning, I'm talking about those perennials, those native plants. You're going to cut down all of that above ground growth, put it in your compost pile. You can go ahead and start removing the leaves from the bed if you would like. You can mulch those down if you want. You can put them in like a pile, run your lawnmower over them or something like that, and then put them back in your beds if you want to just have those create mulch. And breaking them down into smaller pieces is going to help them compost down a little bit more and turn into compost, or you can just put them in your compost pile. Some people like to just let them flatten down and put mulch on top of them. That's fine too. It kind of matters how you like to do your beds and how quickly you feel like your beds are turning over organic matter. Once it's in there. You can prune your evergreens as needed. Place mulch for the spring. So this is when I like to put the mulch down, because if it's just been Valentine's Day and I just trim down all of my above ground growth, this is when my beds are the clearest, and so this is when it's easiest to put down my mulch, right? So 3 inches native hardwood mulch, triple ground. That's what I like best. All right, moving on to March, which we're actually in right now. This is typically the beginning of spring, but again, you got to monitor that last freeze, because you don't know. It could come at the end of March. It could come at the beginning of April sometimes. So you just have to do a little bit of guessing, do a little bit of monitoring, right? Still no watering. Hopefully we start to have rain in March, which we have at this point, right? And so our soil should be pretty moist at this point in time. Again, if it's really hot and if it's really dry already in March, which hopefully it's not, but it could be, 1/4 of an inch per week at the most. Time to run your sprinkler system to check. It's about to be watering season, right? You're about to start, in the months coming, you're going to start pumping your irrigation system. So this is a good time. Do you have leaks? Do do we need to adjust the irrigation system? Do we need to make any changes? If in January you were creating some new beds, that probably means you're gonna have to change some sprinkler heads to accommodate those new beds, right? So reassess your sprinkler system, get it ready for the coming season.
We can register you for free to do that if you're a Fort Worth Water customer.
Absolutely.
I can sign you up if you want a free evaluation today, and for anyone online who wants to, the reason I'm not mic'd, it's free.
Yes.
It's free online for smart irrigation evaluations.
That's right. All Tarrant County residents can get a free sprinkler evaluation. We'll send a licensed irrigator out to your house to check your sprinkler system. So if you want to sign up for that, visit Kelsey. She will help you out. Harvest your winter vegetables. Clear your beds for your spring vegetables. Start getting ready to plant your spring vegetable garden. If you're safe from freezing, or if you feel like you're safe from freezing, we never know for sure, you can go ahead and start planting your vegetable plant. The thing with our seasons are, sometimes, and let's just use now as an example, let's say we have this light frost that is coming this weekend, right? Let's say that we think that that is our last frost of the year. You could have planted your vegetables probably already 2 weeks ago, cover them for the one night, that it's gonna be a light frost, and then you've extended your growing period for a month, basically, right? So the way our seasons work, just depending on how it's going, a lot of times just covering them a few times, both in the early, late winter and early spring, and the late fall, early winter, you can extend your vegetable growing period by a good amount. Always a risk, though. You never know. It's the weather, so you're never sure. No one's ever sure. Remove any of your remaining leaves and your vegetation if you haven't already at this point in time. Turn your compost pile. Hopefully, at this point, when you have removed your winter veggies and you're ready to make your spring vegetable garden, you've got some beautiful compost that you've made from the year before to add to those spring beds when you're turning them over. Put your vegetables in, mulch your vegetable beds, water deep for all of your spring vegetables. If you've been overwintering some potting plants indoors or in your garage, hopefully at this point it's safe to go ahead and bring them out. Let's talk about some good spring vegetables. So when we're talking early spring, onions, you can do garlic, any of our brassicas, so broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, all of those type of things. Potatoes, pretty much any of our root vegetables. We can do potatoes, we can do carrots, we can do onions, we can do garlic, peas, radishes, any of your greens. Greens are great, right? Any of your lettuces, spinach, kale, whatever you like. Asparagus, you can go ahead and plant your asparagus now. Asparagus is a perennial, right? The asparagus will come back year after year once you plant it, but the rest of these will not. All right, moving on to April. So now, when it comes to April, hopefully we're getting our beautiful April showers. Hopefully we don't need any irrigation because it is raining tons and tons and tons. But it might not. It could be warm, it could be dry. So without rainfall, if it's warm, for native plants you're looking at a fifth or so of an inch per week watering. If you got higher water use plants or a lawn, you're looking at more like a half an inch. But always follow your weekly watering advice. Like I said, hopefully in April we don't have that issue. Hopefully it's beautiful and rainy. This is the time to start again planting your native perennials or non-native perennials, but I'm always going to recommend the natives, right? So this is the time that all of that dreaming that you do in January comes to fruition, right? You've got your seeds planted, you've got your vegetables planted, maybe your flowers are sprouting, you've made a new bed, you're ready to put your new native plants in that bed. This is peak spring. Seed for fall wildflowers. So if you're seeding during the springtime, you're not going to get spring wildflowers until next spring, but you'll get fall wildflowers, right? And then the reverse is true. If you're seeding during the fall, you'll get next spring's wildflowers and next fall's wildflowers. If it was too cold in March, go ahead and plant your veggies. Hopefully not, because we all know April, if you're planting in April your vegetables, man, you don't have that long until it's already getting pretty hot. Water and fertilize, organic fertilize your veggies. I'm going to talk about your sprinkler again. It's time to measure your sprinkler output, especially if you made some of those changes that we talked about, right? So if you change anything on your sprinkler system, maybe put some new heads in, whatever, things can get out of adjustment, right, during the time when you're not using it. So it's always important at the beginning of the spring before you start using your irrigation to measure that output and make sure you know, you can calculate out, because I'm giving you advice in inches, right? But you set your sprinkler controller by minutes. So you need to measure your output to know how many inches you get per minute. And that's going to be different in different zones because you might have some zones that are rotors and they have a completely different amount of water that comes out than your fixed spray heads, right? So you probably have rotors on your lawn and the fixed spray heads in your regular plant gardens, flower beds, whatever you want to call them. You can also check for uneven coverage this way, right? So you can see, okay, do I have a dry spot over here that's not getting any irrigation, but then over here there's just like a ton of spraying on the ground, and you can address some of those issues. So I'm not going to go over this in super detail, but I do want to talk about calculating your water output because it's important. A lot of people water their yard and they just have absolutely no clue what their sprinkler output is or even how many gallons of water that they're using when they run an irrigation system. And I know the city of Fort Worth can vouch for this. During the summertime, all of our water departments, they get tons of calls because people get a surprise bill, right? And they're like, how can my bill be this high?
I started today. I got my first one.
Yes. And then we go back and we look at their data, and they've been watering, and they don't realize how much water your sprinkler system puts out, right? So this is one easy method. If you just want to know, okay, how much water am I paying for? You can look at your, you can look at your dial on your
Smart meter. You can look at your
if you have a smart meter, look at your online data. That tells the whole story.
I've got your data.
Yes. There are some cities that don't have that though, and there are some areas that don't have that, and it's just the old school way. So you turn off everything in your house, make sure nothing's using water, and you go out and you look at your dial and see what it's at. Then you run your sprinkler system, and then you look at it again, and you subtract those two numbers, and that's how much your water is using. Now, if you turn off everything in your house, every single thing that's using water, and you look at your dial and it's still moving, that means you have a leak. And so that is another thing to think about. But if you sign up for leak alerts, right?
It saved someone's bacon today. That high
Yes.
phone call was triggered because the customer was notified by a customer.
Yeah. So if you,
Continuous usage.
right, it's continuous usage is what it's technically called, but most people call them leak alerts. And so you'll get that alert from them if you sign up for those before you get that high bill. So you can get it fixed before it's extra. And then the second one here, we're talking about putting out some I have tuna cans there, you can use tuna cans. Anything that's flat though, it needs to be flat sides, right? And flat bottom so that you can measure the inches. But you put them out and put them out randomly everywhere so that you can see if you have that uneven coverage. Because you might have one tuna can that's got an inch in it and one tuna can that's got a few drops in it. And you're like, oh, well, I know that this is some uneven spray that's going on, right? But you run it for however many minutes and then you do the math, right? Okay, I ran it for whatever, 10 minutes and it put out a half of an inch. So I know I'm putting out a half of an inch every 10 minutes, something like that. And do it for each zone because different zones are going to be different. All right, moving on to May. May is when you start watering at night instead of in the morning. So a lot of us run our sprinkler system, let's say 5 a.m., 6 a.m., something like that. When it's hot, when it starts to get hot outside, it's better for your plants to water at night. So when it starts getting crazy hot outside, and y'all know it gets hot, 100 degrees outside, whatever, our plants' natural tendency, the thing that they want to do, is they're gonna shut their pores off so they're not evapotranspirating, right, during that heat. So they're not exerting themselves during that heat. And if you're watering in the morning, let's say you water at 5 a.m. and it's the middle of the summertime, they've only got a few hours before it gets back up to 100 degrees again as soon as the sun comes up. And they've only got a few hours to do their plant growing, plant business, open up their pores and suck up the water before they've got closed down again, right? So watering at night can really help let them have more time to recover during the night and grow during the night when it's not 100 degrees outside. Also, watering at night, the evaporative cooling will cool the temperature of your landscape quicker. So if it's been a 100-degree day, that is being trapped, in the concrete, in the soil, whatever. If you water at night, that evaporative cooling is going to start lowering that temperature, and again, your plants are going to start recovering a little bit faster, right? So we got our watering advice here. You guys can read it on there. I'm going to stop reading it for you. You can see the watering advice. But yeah, once the temperatures begin to rise, and sometimes May is beautiful. Sometimes May is not beautiful, right? Sometimes May is already basically summertime. So hopefully in May we're getting adequate rainfall. If it's a good year, it might not be a good year, and it might be already hot and dry during May. So you never know. May, enjoy your beautiful spring blooms. Enjoy the beautiful weather because we know the heat's about to hit, right? And we know that our spring wildflowers they're on their way out, right? But you can start planting for those later spring or summer vegetables, right? Those vegetables that will stand our summer temperatures. Keep your veggies watered. Hopefully you can start to harvest some vegetables at this point. If you are able to put your vegetable plants out early in spring, you should be starting to harvest right now. You can go ahead and seed right now for the fall wildflowers. So May is about one of your last chances to be able to sprout seeds, wildflower seeds, to be able to have those fall flowers. If you start to have some dead flowers, you can start some deadhead, right? So that you can prolong that growing period a little bit and get a few more beautiful flowers out before summer hits. So here's some good summer vegetables that might be a later spring into the summer. So we're talking tomatoes, peppers, any type of beans, green beans, black-eyed peas, whatever you like. Our melons, right? So cantaloupe and watermelon, honeydew melon, whatever you like. Eggplants, okra, our summer squashes, so things like zucchini, and our yellow squashes, kitty cat, flying saucer, whatever you want to call them. Those are all great. Now tomatoes, I think typically tomatoes will stop setting fruit at about 95 degrees, right? So they might still flower, but no matter how much you water them, their flowers won't turn into fruit. But if you have an indeterminate tomato variety, you can keep it alive during that horrible hot summertime, and you'll get more fruits come fall time if you want to keep it alive. If you have a determinate variety, it typically only fruits once, and then you're pretty much done. And you're going to want to, if you want another round of tomatoes, you're going to put in another round during the fall. All right, June. This is when we're pretty hot. We're going to start being hot, right? If it hasn't already started, your weekly watering will probably start at this point in time. Now, last summer was really hot, but we cannot hope for that every summer, right? The last summer was a treat compared to the other summers in the past. So you can see we're starting to get pretty high on our water use there. Remember to use your rainwater from your rain barrels. Hopefully you've been capturing rain in your rain barrels during the springtime, and now it's time. Okay, now I can pop that out and I can start using it. Start putting out water for pollinators and other wildlife. They struggle during the summertime, right? And so this is a point in time where they're going to start needing fresh water put out for them. Make sure you monitor it often. It's probably going to evaporate if it's shallow. If it's not shallow, make sure you're not growing mosquitoes, right? You want to keep it fresh and clean, always. If you haven't already, harvest all your spring veggies. Some vegetables, like I said, they might stop producing at this point in time. Depending on what vegetable it is, you can keep them alive over the summertime and let them produce again in the fall, or you can pull them out and just wait for your fall vegetables and put completely new fall vegetables in. Now, something like peppers, you're great. Peppers will keep producing throughout the summertime, and they're wonderful. But most of your stuff is not going to be so great starting in June. But this is when you start planning for your fall vegetable garden. So this is kind of what I like to think of as like winter 2, right? When you're like, you don't really want to be out in your yard gardening, things are starting to look a little dead, and you're dreaming of fall when you can do fun gardening things again. So I always say, like, they say like seasonal affective disorder, right? Where you like stay inside during the winter. Like, no, in Texas, that happens in the summer. Because, like, there's, y'all know, there's a period of time where you just can't even do anything outdoors. It's miserable. Now is the time to start solarizing your lawn if you want to kill some of it. And I recommend that you do.
For your go and grow garden.
That's right, for your fall go and grow garden, or just your go and grow native plants. So if you've got a big lawn, maybe just start taking it out a little bit, every summer, just a tiny little bit. Continue to deadhead your perennials. Usually this is time when you stop planting anything, right? Because it's hard to plant anything at this point in time. We'll talk a little bit about solarizing methods if you do want to kill some of your lawn. If you don't want to do it, there's an instant way, right? But that's also the hard way in terms of it takes work to physically remove that lawn. If you want to do it the easy way, it takes longer, but you just kill it over the summertime, and then once it gets to the fall, you're ready. So, lasagna method, put some cardboard out, layers of cardboard, layers of mulch, that type of thing. Thick layers, water it in, let that lawn bake. Let it bake in the sun. It'll get hot in there. It'll kill it all. This is what you want to do if you have Bermuda grass and you need to remove your Bermuda grass. Y'all probably know Bermuda is so aggressive, so hard to kill, even during the middle of the summer. So this is how you kill your Bermuda grass if you want. You can also use a plastic sheet, a thick UV ready plastic sheet. Put it down, staple it around the edges, and you're just baking that lawn off basically during the summertime, right? Leave it, smother the grass. You leave this until, fall. And usually once you've gone through like July and August, and a lot of times September is pretty hot too, you're good. Your lawn's nice and smothered at that point. All right, going into July. Now it's hot. It's distinctly hot at this point in time, right? We're watering quite a bit, unfortunately. Your larger watering volumes and your larger watering times means you're going to start, if you haven't already, begin to use the cycle and soak method. We'll talk about the cycle and soak method. Heavy sprinkler use also means there's more chance for breaks. So make sure that at least, maybe you're running it, whatever, you should be running it at night at this point, right? Let's say you started at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., something like that. Run it a little bit so that you can, while you're there, so that you can see if you have any breaks or anything, and make sure you're watering it at night. You can harvest seeds from spring blooms. So your spring plants are done blooming, they've set seed, those seeds have dried out, and you're probably ready to harvest those things. So if you like that type of thing, you can do that. You can remove some of the dead spring wildflowers and annuals if you feel like, sometimes in the summertime things start getting a little crispy, and you can prune them back a little bit, right? You can remove some of that, brown stuff. Finish planting for your fall garden. You want to need changes or replacements in your garden. Tree planting is going to happen in the fall, so start planting if you want to plant a tree or something like that. Get your fall vegetables. Start thinking about sprouting your seeds for your fall vegetable garden. And again, work backwards on that timeline if you're wanting to do like a winter harvest. So here's some good fall vegetables that you might start to think about during this time. Of course, things like pumpkins, winter squash. Some of those spring things, again, can be grown during the fall. So we're talking the brassicas like the broccoli, the cauliflower, your herbs, peppers, tomatoes, again, right? We talked about the tomatoes. All of your beautiful greens over there, beets, Brussels sprouts. winter squash, butternut squash, you know, winter types. All right, now we're in August, height of the heat, worst of the times, right? We're all miserable. Make sure you're cycling and soaking your sprinkler system. So we've got this heat, we've got this, most of us probably have clay soils. It's hard once they dry out, it's hard for them to soak water back up, right? They don't soak it up at a fast rate. And so if you're running, let's say you need to run your sprinkler system for, let's say, 25 minutes. If you run it all at 25 minutes at a time, you're probably only getting like 10 minutes of the water actually soaking in, and then the rest of it's just running off because your clay soil isn't soaking in as fast as your sprinkler output is. So you want to break that up, right? You want to break up that watering into 4 or so different cycles where you're running each zone for, let's say, 5 minutes each or something like that. It sits for a little while, it comes back around, and then it goes down again. And you get more watering in small increments, letting it soak into the ground. If you haven't already, begin sprouting your seeds for fall, and get ready for your fall vegetable garden. Start prepping your beds, turn your compost, water your compost, add some compost, remove your dead spring vegetables. They're probably firmly dead at this point. Some can be kept, like I said, sometimes your tomatoes, peppers, things like that can be kept, but most of your, especially your early spring stuff is not going to be still alive at this point, or it's going to be very sad. Optional pruning of native plants. Sometimes our native plants are looking sad right now. That is their natural tendency, right? That's their natural defense mechanism for when they're out in the wild and they're not getting any help from us or anything like that. Their natural tendency during the summertime is just to hunker down, die down a little bit. They'll come back during the fall when it starts with our fall rains, right? So you might get some crispy plants. You can go ahead and prune some of that down. Add your compost, turn your compost, all of that. Like I said, our native plants, they are tough. And they're happy to be out in the heat. Well, okay, maybe not happy. Nobody's happy. They're okay, right? They are drought tolerant. They've got these deep roots. They're using their defense mechanisms to survive that hot summer. Now, if you want to water them a little bit during the summertime, that's great. They will probably be a little bit happier, a little bit greener, bloom for a little bit longer period of time, right? But it's their natural tendency to just kind of hunker down, die down a little bit. You can prune them a little bit if you want, but they're going to be tolerant of that heat. They're going to be tolerant of those drought periods. Love our hard clay soil, all of that. Of course, I'm talking about native plants because they save water, but they do so many other things too. At this point, it's hot outside, right? These things can reduce that heat island effect and reduce the local temperature in your yard, right? Especially things like trees. You know, trees can decrease your temperature in the summertime by 20, 25 degrees sometimes. So when it's 105 degrees outside, it can be just 85 degrees in your yard, and that's pretty nice when it's that bad. You see the cute little boys, they are showing how deep those roots grow and how these native plants are surviving during the horrible summertime. All right, moving on to September. I say it might begin to cool down, but I think most of us know that September is usually like just August too. Most of the time, September is not even. It's great if we start cooling down. It's great if we start getting rain, but a lot of times that's not what happens in September. And so you might have to keep watering just like you did in August. At this point in time, the hummingbirds are going to start migrating, right? They're going to start migrating. So make sure your hummingbird feeders are out. Make sure you've got fresh, nice nectar for them. Nectar, I say, that you're hopefully just making yourself out of sugar and water. Look at your mulch. Some people only mulch once a year during the spring, and that's completely fine. But if you look at your mulch during this time in September and it's already broken down to organic matter and some of your mulch is gone, you can remulch, and that's great for September time. Seed for your spring wildflowers. Start planting your fall vegetable seedlings. You're gonna depending on temperature, you're gonna start putting your fall vegetables out, watering organic fertilizer. Let's talk about bulb plants. If you like bulb plants, September is the best time to purchase those bulbs, but you're not gonna put them in the ground yet, right? Usually what people do with bulb plants, and I will admit, bulb plants are too much for me. I love gardening, but these things are high maintenance, man. You take them out and you put them in your refrigerator, or maybe sometimes you wrap them in like newspaper, if people didn't have newspaper anymore, I don't know. You put them in your garage, something like that. You let them overwinter, and then you take them out and you plant them in the spring, the early spring typically, right? So that's going to be like January or February, so that you're going to plant those. And then you do it all over again the next year. You dig them up, right? And then you put them in your refrigerator. It's too much for me. But if you like that sort of thing, by all means, buy them in September, so they're cheap. All right, we're finally, hopefully in fall, October. Honestly, sometimes October is still pretty hot. I like to always think, I feel like it's Halloween night when it finally gets actually cold. You get actual cold weather. Hopefully we're starting to get some rainfall at this point in time. You can reduce your water significantly during this point in time. But again, just monitor, because it could be still hot and dry during the first part of October especially. Fall is the best time to plant native plants, so this is the time to start thinking about, okay, do I want to go to some fall native plant sales? Do I want to start going to the nursery and get some awesome native plants? Your solarizing is done at this point. If you have solarized over the summertime, your grass is firmly dead, and you are ready to pull it up to plant some native plants. Seed for your spring wildflowers. Like she said, like we talked about in the trivia, right? Fall is the best time to seed for your wildflowers. Continue to water your fall vegetables. Hopefully some of your fall vegetables will start to produce, like if you want to get some pumpkins for jack-o'-lanterns or something like that. And then you're going to start planting for your winter vegetables now. Let's talk about fall pollinators. We have beautiful fall blooms here in Texas, right? Especially our native plants. The monarchs are going to be migrating back down to Mexico. And so I just want to talk about this horrible bad plant there that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. That's tropical milkweed. If you have tropical milkweed at this point in time in fall, it's probably still above ground. Your native milkweed will typically not be above the ground at this point. And what happens is when the monarchs are coming back down to Mexico, they want to make it back down to Mexico to overwinter. But if they see this tropical milkweed out, they get induced to breed, and like most insects, once they breed, their life cycle is done, right? So they're going to see this tropical milkweed when it's not supposed to be out. They're going to lay their eggs on it. They're going to die before they make it to Mexico, and their eggs are going to die because it's now, late October, early November, and it can't grow from caterpillar to butterfly typically before it gets cold again. So don't buy tropical milkweed. Hummingbirds should still be coming along. See some beautiful hummingbirds. Typically in this area, we get the ruby-throated ones and the black-chinned ones. Is probably what you're going to see mainly. The ruby-throated probably maintaining their feeders and their bird baths. Sorry. In November, you're going to begin monitoring for that first frost. It could be coming. It could be far off. You don't really know at this point in time. Hopefully it's time to turn off your irrigation. Hopefully we're getting some nice fall rain and you can quit irrigating. But, if it's still hot and it's still dry, you might be having to still water some a little bit. Texas Arbor Day is November 7th. It's time to plant trees. So if you want to plant some trees, now's the time. Start harvesting your fall vegetables and begin prepping for your winter vegetables. So depending on what type of fall plants you have, if they're done, you can start removing them, making way for those winter plants, or you can let them kind of go on until we get our first frost and they die off. Most of our winter veggies are going to be direct sowed, so this is a good time to till up your earth a little bit, put some compost into it, get ready to direct sow those winter vegetables. Leaves will start falling. Leave those leaves on the ground, let them do their thing. depending on the temperature, again, those perennials, that above ground vegetation will start dying off. Leave it. Let it be over the winter time. Let the pollinators have it for the next few months. And then if it starts to freeze, you got to start bringing in those temperature sensitive plants that are in pots, and then covering any freezes and stuff outdoors. Then you start thinking about those winter vegetables. So these are things that will typically grow. Some of these things taste better once they've gone through a frost, right? Things like broccoli, some of our greens and stuff, once they've gone through a light frost, it matures their flavor, right? But we're thinking about some of those direct sow things like those carrots. Most of your greens are probably going to be direct sow. Again, the brassicas, the broccoli, the cauliflower, the Brussels sprouts, your collard greens, your mustard greens, whatever, that type of thing. Kohlrabi, Swiss chard, and then some of those root vegetables now again, right? So the onions, the garlic, the potatoes. All right, last part of the year, we're in December. Your irrigation should be turned off at this point. We're firmly into winter time. Your irrigation should be turned off. If it happens to be hot and dry, you can water it tiny a little bit, but for the most part, your irrigation should be done at this point. Hand water your winter vegetables, especially if there are greens and stuff like that. They're going to need quite a bit of water, so you can hand water those. Plant your winter veggies if you haven't done that already. Begin planting for next spring. We're starting the process all over again, right? Starting from the beginning. Sharpen your tools and your mower blade. This is something that so many people forget, and it's so important, especially the mower blades. If you're mowing, you haven't sharpened your blades in a long time, you're just ripping up that grass. I don't know if you can see it. It's like frayed at the top. You're not, it's not cutting anymore. It's just like, I don't know, ripping, basically. Again, remember to leave the leaves, let the leaves be. I mean, if you want to sweep them off your porch or something, that's fine. But let them be in the beds, let them be. Things like, there are tons of insects that we see flying around as adults. Things like butterflies, things like beetles, fireflies, lightning bugs, whatever you want to call them, that type of thing. They're spending 80% of their life cycle below ground, living in leaf litter, living in the soil, something like that. We just don't see them until they're out flying around. A lot of insects, once they're flying around, that's just their breeding period, and it's all of 4 days sometimes, and then they're done with what they're doing and they're dead at that point. We got to make sure that we're providing that habitat for them. All right, and lastly, I want to give you this landscape tool. So I actually used to work here at BRIT before I worked for TRWD, and we did a research project for the General Services Administration where they wanted to see what were the outcomes of their landscaping decisions when it came to their water use, when it came to their carbon footprint, when it came to their impact on local wildlife and local pollinators. And so we made this beautiful Excel-based tool. It is free. Government paid for this for all of you and for themselves too. But you can get it for completely free on our website, or you can scan the QR code here. It's just an Excel spreadsheet that asks you a variety of questions about your landscape. And it will give you an output in those 3 categories: the carbon footprint, the water use, and the impact on pollinators. And not only will it give you a number, it will also compare your landscape to a typical traditional landscape in this area. And so you can use it as a just FYI tool. You can use it as a decision-making tool. You can use it as a design type of tool where you're looking at, maybe you want to compare 2 different designs, or you want to say, okay, I'm going to make this different decision next year. How will that affect my water use, that type of thing? Or if I took 1/4 of my lawn and I took off that lawn and I replaced it with native plants, how much water would I save? How much money would I save on my water bill? That type of thing. So I wanted to give you all this tool to use. And here's some resources for you. Thank you so much for having me. The last thing I'm going to put on the screen after these resources, first of all, if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, I recommend you do that. Go to SaveTarrantWater.com and subscribe to our newsletter. We've got some awesome things that are happening coming soon. And sometimes we got a limited budget. We're government, right? We got a limited budget. Sometimes we have opportunities that we can only offer to a certain amount of people, right? We've got a limit. our newsletter subscribers are the first people to get dibs on those awesome, programs and projects and things like that. If you are interested in lawns, if you care about lawns, I don't want to leave you hanging. I'm not the biggest lawn fan. You guys probably know. But if you care, here's a nice calendar for what you do with your St. Augustine lawn from AgriLife. So y'all are welcome to take a look at that. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them. If not,
I have an online question.
oh, an online question. Okay, hold on, let's get the online question. What is that?
Okay, 2 questions. Completely unrelated.
Okay.
Full disclosure, one of these is from my dad.
Okay. All right, Chelsea's dad. Hi, Chelsea's dad.
Hey dad, I'm gonna ask you a question. He's asking, will watering at night increase an incidence or the incidence of fungal or mildew occurrences on your plants?
That is a great question because a lot of people, you hear that a lot in the gardening community. Typically, that is more for places up north where it does not get as hot as it gets here. If we're talking summertime here, that water is not staying there for long enough to make any type of fungal growth.
He's biased, he's in Atlanta. So
Okay,
these are
Atlanta.
still our same zone.
Right, but Atlanta,
Much cooler winter.
right, it is cooler there. So Atlanta might be different, but here in Texas, as long as it's hot outside, you're good to water your garden. Do we have another online one or take
Yes,
here?
this is unrelated to, more about your presentation.
Okay.
Are you able to share your PowerPoint presentation, or is this some of this information posted anywhere else? We will post it on YouTube, just so you all know, but
Yes.
not the actual presentation.
Sure. So we have a blog, SaveTarrantWater.com. We do have a blog that describes much of this information. And Kelsey, if you want, it's up to you. If you want to email people the presentation, if you will email me afterwards and remind me, I will send you the PDF version of this presentation and you can send it out to everyone who registered. All right, yellow in the back.
Years ago, Water District and Botanical Gardens did a deal where you had special prices on the water barrels.
Oh, uh-huh.
And it was years ago, I was going to do something like that again.
So, we do DIY rainwater harvesting classes as well. We pay $75 for those rain barrels, and we let you come to a class to build them for only $25. So we heavily subsidize that. You can check out our event calendar to see some of that if one's coming up in your area.
Years ago, we had it in the parking lot.
Yeah, the IV barrels is what you're talking about.
And that led to some physical confrontation, which made it so we cannot carry that. I'm not like, sort of. But Heather and I are in cahoots to try to figure out if perhaps we be doing it at the Texas AgriLife Extension Office.
Yeah.
The Tarrant Master Gardener's property. We are promised, we are actively trying to massage.
We are. We're trying to figure it out.
And back out, but there was a very specific incident that occurred, that actually three very specific incidents that occurred that day, that I have been told since I started working here that it won't happen unless we come up with an alternative plan. But sign up for Heather's newsletter and you will be the first to find out what it is.
Yeah, we've got several DIY rainwater harvesting classes that are coming up where you could do that $25 to come to class and build your own barrel. But yes, we are trying to work out.
But we still are using ours.
They're more expensive though. That's the thing. The ones that you get that are fully made, they're a little bit more expensive. We probably will, if we do something like that, we probably will subsidize them again, but probably not as heavily as the class.
Okay, you said water at night.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't get dark until like 9 o'clock in the summertime. So are you saying what, because my husband always says, wait till it cools down to start watering, because it's still hot.
It is still
9
hot.
o'clock. So you're talking about in the morning, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning?
No, so it's kind of the opposite. Start watering so that your landscape starts cooling off, because that evaporative cooling will happen once you start putting water down in your landscape. So pretty much as soon as the sun goes down. I mean, 10, 11 o'clock, yeah, something like that. So if you're cycling and soaking, let's say you're running, 3 cycles, and let's say to go through all of your zones, it's an hour, let's just an example. You might start watering at 11 p.m. and then you stop watering at 2 a.m., something like that.
So you have to, on your watering day, you can't go past midnight, because you'll be into the next day.
And you're gonna hear from me.
I know.
So sign up for one of our sprinkler evaluations and we will get you overnight watering at the right time, which is at the right hours and then you're not.
Exactly, and if that's the case, so let's say tomorrow is your watering day, start watering at midnight on the dot. If today is your watering day, then start watering at 10 p.m., but only water for 2 hours until you get to midnight.
Okay.
Right? So Kelsey's not on.
Come to me, let us pick, first of all, people.
She can help you.
People do all the hard work for you. I can't emphasize enough how wonderful this program is. You just have to physically be there when they get there.
Right.
All you have to do.
It's an educational thing, you just gotta talk to them, but they'll help you with your timing, your controller, that type of thing, they'll help you work that out. And also, if you have drip irrigation, you don't have to be beholden to those rules, so.
For now.
For now, okay, she said that, Mike? We'll see what happens.
Some Tarrant County residents may not have to. Let's leave it at that.
Okay, there you go, some Tarrant County residents, so. Maybe some incentive to switch to drip, yeah.
I just want to share, if anybody's looking for free mulch, the tree farm at 2525 Joe Rushing Road has a mountain's worth of it. You have to bring your own shovel and your own containers, and they get yourself,
Yeah.
but it's free.
Yep, over by TCC South Campus.
Yeah.
What's the address again?
2525 Joe Rushing Road.
Joe B. Rushing.
Yeah, that's right. It's right by Tarrant County College South.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With all the rains that we've gotten the last 2 days, I have established a raised bed,
Uh-huh.
and a band of ants have gone in there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like 2 or 3 inches high.
Yeah.
How should I leave them? Should I treat them? What can I use?
So, do you know what type of ants they are?
I know they're not fire ants. They're smaller, and I know they're not carpenter ants.
Okay. So maybe like
They're small.
So we have a lot of different types of ants, and you treat them differently depending on what type of ants they are. But boric acid usually will do it.
It won't hurt the plants.
No, the boric acid shouldn't hurt the plants. No, but you can also do it where you put it in like a little container, and then cut a hole in the side of the container, and mix it with like sugar or something like that, and then they will come in and they will eat it, and they'll bring it back to their nest. So you're not just like sprinkling it in there. I would say something like diatomaceous earth, but the problem with diatomaceous earth is it kills all insects, even the exoskeleton. So if it's your vegetable bed and you're like, I don't want any insects in there,
It's just flowers.
it's flowers, yeah.
Somebody online had suggested out of Austin using that orange. What is it? Orange oil. Orange oil. Like,
Yeah, and I've seen like some of the other oils like rosemary oil, sage oil, oregano oil, some of those things can definitely work because it's just so strong and they don't get for some reason. Yeah, I did see a study that just came out about oregano oil, that was pretty good.
okay.
I can help with the ants. You can mix milk, sugar, baking soda, and some white bread. You mix it and make those little balls. Put it in the ants. They take it to the nest. And it,
Ooh, that's a good tip.
As a viewer, just want to take this opportunity to introduce the animal and just go to the back. The city of Fort Worth will be hosting for the first time ever a completely Spanish water saving seminar. If you'd like to really throw off your month and join us on a Wednesday night in this room, we would love to have you come. We will be doing hands-on demos that you could take home, but it will be completely in Spanish. Come, I'm going to be here. Miss Melissa's very kind to help let me come and still be part of it. We want us to be here in this room, so please do enjoy it. She's got tons of tips and tricks like that for that.
Can you read
repeat that for everybody else to hear?
Yes.
The recipe.
Oh,
It's white bread, just the dollar white bread. Don't use no wheat. Ants don't like that. Birds don't like that. Yeah, it's white bread, milk, sugar. You can use syrup, whatever you have in your kitchen, and baking soda.
Baking soda.
Yeah, baking soda. Everything for your kitchen, things that you have. You don't need to buy nothing. Mix it, let it dry a little bit. When the milk and the bread, make little balls and just put it there. And then go eat it.
Recipe.
How much baking soda does bread?
Well, I normally do it for the neighbors, so I make a big bowl and go fill it.
Yeah.
Because when I see people Home Depot buying all those expensive big bags for $8, $12, $20 something, I tell them stop, tell me your address, and I go fill it. I don't
The online question is, what if your HOA has a problem? Removal from your home, removal from your sidewalks, driveway, whatever. Put them in a giant pile, mulch them down with your mower, and put them nicely in your beds as if it was mulch.
But you don't want to do that if you've got the butterflies and the insects.
If you take them off of your lawn and stuff, the butterflies and the insects are probably not in the leaves in your lawn. They're gonna be like underneath the soil in your beds and your soil and stuff. So you can put that down on top of that and then let it, and do it early in the season so they're not down in there yet, right?
What she was talking about was for
Ants.
Ants, yeah.
because I use flour, just white flour.
Just flour, and they don't like
And
flour?
those them, no, they don't like it.
Oh, alright, flour. Maybe the ants eat flour.
You mentioned spring and fall wildflowers and all of that.
I'm starting to read wildflowers, so I don't really know anything. I think more about, I guess, different varieties, what is fall versus spring wildflowers.
Yeah, so anything, like, if you got one of our wildflower things, so most times you get a wildflower thing, it's just literally it's spring and fall, blooming stuff. If you're looking at specific wildflowers, you know, say
The difference between fall and spring wildflowers.
look, you know, just look up. But, it's basically the opposite, right? So to get spring wildflowers, plant your seeds in the fall. To get fall wildflowers, plant your seeds in the spring. If you have a mix, you can plant it at any point in time, spring or fall, but just you don't have to wait till the next, you know, the next cycle to go through, basically. Right, so thank you. Yeah. Any other stuff here? Anywhere? Yeah.
You had mentioned you're doing a pocket prairie class.
Yeah.
When and where is that?
It's online, and it's next week, and if you go to just staycareart.com here, did everybody get their information on the St. Augustine? I'm gonna switch it over to the resources. If you go to staycarewater.com and look at our event calendars, you'll find it there. It's next week, just register for it, and then we'll send you an email with the link, and it's at like 6 p.m., it's the 19th. There you go, thank you, the 19th. So on the 19th, 6 p.m., it's just an online class. You just click the link and log in. Yeah. And if you already purchased one of those gardens, you can get a $25 rebate if you join that class.
You can come hang out with me on distribution day.
Yes, you can choose Fort Worth as your distribution location, and you can come see Kelsey.
You can draw, I will trade you flowers for coffee. Tracy likes tea. So, Michaela will be there, Laura, they'll all be there. So if you will trade you your flowers for some coffee, that's good.
Yeah, I've got like a quarter acre, I'm going to put wildflower.
Great, I love that.
And I bought them, I was going to put them in the ground in January, circumstance didn't happen, so I still got it. And this area was mowed,
Okay.
so I mowed it flat and was going to not mow it. So if I put the seeds down now, I don't know if I'm going to get any spring growth or if I'm just going to be in the fall.
So you'll get spring growth, but you won't get spring blooms, right? So, you'll start getting blooms once fall.
Okay, so if I put seeds down now, they'll germinate, they'll grow,
Yeah,
so I don't mow.
don't mow, yeah.
Okay.
And then when fall rolls around, then you should start getting.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say July, August, that growth has died, then there's no reason not to mow. Because this is a little area that, a cemetery park kind of thing, and it's going to look like the devil, but I got it way at the back.
Mow high, so
Yeah.
at that point in time, your seed will be like this.
Yeah.
Mow high, and you will get everything else and just.
Okay, I thank you guys so much. I want to say thank you to